Bonjour, ici Ray Zahab. Welcome to sorti du bois.
Si tu commences à te sentir bien en courant un ultramarathon, fais-toi-en pas, ça va passer.
Grand champion du 125 km!
Barre protéinée, barre caféinée, gaufre, drink mix, poudre protéinée, la gamme de produits NAC s'en vient tellement complète qu'avec ça, t'as un arsenal complet pour ton prochain grand défi. Puis surtout pour avant, pendant, puis après les entraînements qui vont t'amener jusque-là. Tout ça, ça se trouve à un seul endroit sur le nacbar.com. Puis parce que NAC est un partenaire du podcast, il t'offre 15% de rabais sur ta première commande en ligne. Tu vas sur leur site web, tu remplis ton panier, puis tant qu'à être là, tu visites la section de l'équipement puis tu te choisis du trail swag, puis rendu au moment de payer, tu rentres le code promo pas sorti du bois. PASSORTIDUBOIS. Merci Will, Min et toute l'équipe de NAC et bon épisode.
Ouais, on n'est pas sorti du bois, hein?
Bonjour tout le monde, bienvenue à cet épisode numéro 112 de Pas sorti du bois. Vous allez voir, on va faire un petit switch en anglais. Vous le savez, on le fait pour un seul invité, one and only one guest that we switch in English because it's a French podcast. But when we have the chance to speak with the great Ray Zahab, we got to switch to English and we got to do an English episode. And the last time we talked together, we had such a good time and people really had a good time. You're someone that is very known in the running community, expedition community, adventure community, and now the coffee community. We're at UTHC, on est à l'Ultra Trail Harricana dans le kiosque de Capic 1 qui est un partenaire du podcast depuis plusieurs semaines. Ils sont là pour toute la fin de semaine, ils servent du café. Vous allez voir, on est vraiment dans l'action. On a des gens qui viennent se chercher du café. On est à quelques minutes du départ du 28 km, donc on voit les gens qui sont ici. C'est beau. We were, since yesterday we were with the 125K. Elliot Cardin, of course, we're going to talk about this because he's one of your athletes. You're coaching him, but it was only one race going at a time. I mean, the race starts on Friday and there's only that distance that is running. Now we have many distances starting, so there's a lot of people at Mont Grand Fond. It's crazy. Ray Zahab, welcome to Pas sorti du bois.
It's so great to be here again, dude. And you know what? You know, my French, it's getting better. I'm practicing it. I practice it with you when you're not recording me, because then I ruin the beautiful language when I am being recorded. So, I mean, you know, but I got to tell you, being here, the energy is insane. I mean, I was talking to Marlene yesterday and Seb, who I've known for many years, and it's our second year here doing the coffee, and people talk about races all over the world, and I said to them, living in Quebec as well, we in Quebec have something so special here with this race. This is the best race, I feel, in North America. It's an international event. The energy here is incredible. Thousands of runners will go underneath these start lines into places of Charlevoix that we know, because we love these places, and they'll go and discover it for the first time. I was talking to the winner of the women's 125, and her partner were here at having coffee. They were like, "Oh my God, the environment is pristine. We can't believe how beautiful it is. We can't believe how green it is. Is it like this all over Quebec?" I said, "Yeah, you know what? It is like this all over Quebec." So it's just so awesome to be here among this, being in the wilderness that we love so much, being here with you. This is great. And I mean, you know what? The Sorti du Bois podcast, everybody's listening to it. I mean, it's incredible. It's like it's a momentum on its own, right? So to have you here in the coffee booth with us, we're gonna drink espressos all day, you and I.
Exactly. And we're gonna have a lot of fun. I want to thank you because Capic One is a partner of the podcast for a while now, since we talked. And when I knew that you guys were coming back in Harricana, we said, okay, we got to do this in the booth, in the action, with people coming, getting coffee. François behind you, doing coffee shots for people. We're gonna have a lot of fun. And you mentioned Harricana. I mean, it's 3,000 runners. It's the biggest trail running events in Canada.
I think it's got to be the biggest. Am I not mistaken? Is it not the biggest in North America? Because
maybe. I mean, we got to double check. We got to double check this fact, but
like
it's 3,000 people that gonna start these races, and almost as much will finish these races. It's totally crazy. And I mean, I've been sleeping an hour and a half since I've got here. It's crazy. You got Elliot, we did an amazing race. Before we dive into your latest expedition, I want to talk about Elliot because we know him. Elliot Cardin's been trying to win this Ultra Trail Harricana 125K for a while. It was his 4th try. He DNF'd in 2019. Finished second in a super big performance in 2020. Then last year DNF again, and now he came and he won. You're his coach. Tell me about that. What Harricana means to him.
So I got to tell you, for starters, anybody that doesn't know Elliot Cardin, look him up. Anybody that does know him knows what I'm talking about when I say one of the sweetest, kindest. You meet people in your life that you look in their eyes and they have a good soul. That's Elliot. He has a good soul, and you want only the best for him, you know. And when we were here last year, and you know, I saw what had happened last year, and I could see that he was not himself. He's like this guy that we all believe in so much, but he wasn't himself, and he wasn't feeling it. And you know, I'm never too busy for. We're all busy people, but my life is very busy right now with my own expeditions, with Impossible to Possible, with our foundation, with Capic One, but. There's a couple of people that I've been coaching. It's not my profession anymore. I used to coach a lot. But I said, Elliot, I would be an honor to work with you. And let's get back to where you were at Black Canyons earlier in the year, right? Yeah. And so he, you know what we did? He started to learn how to breathe again and lose the anxiety of being on the trails. Because I think nowadays, for a top performer like Elliot or any of the people that we know that are performing at such a high level, there's a new level of anxiety that can be associated with that. And they put it on themselves, the runners, but also it's not implied, but through social media and everything else, I mean, there's an expectation. And the expectations are heavy, like a weight on someone's shoulders. And so learning to breathe through that and just get back to the basics. He steadily climbed throughout the year. We had a series of goals. He achieved one goal after the other. QMT, if anybody followed his performance in the 50K, the strategy was be the hunter, Elliot. Don't be the hunted. Run people down in the second half. And he did it. He delivered big time. Yeah. And I was in Death Valley coming back from a trip, crossing Death Valley, and I was in LA trying to refresh the thing during the QMT to see where, and I'm like, oh my God, he's like 8th. Oh my God, he's 5th. Oh my God, he's 3rd.
Yeah, he was playing Pac-Man. He was literally playing Pac-Man. And we know Elliot as someone, I often compare him to Jim Wamsley. I think it's a good comparison. But the fact that Elliot is always going 110%.
Yes.
And all the races I've seen him done, it's always 110%, start from the gun, and then explode when it's hard or win with a tremendous performance. And 1 out of 2 times, one happened, and then the next day, had a tough performance, but he was always going super intense. And then QMT, he did something totally different that we haven't seen him, which is being the hunter and not the hunted. So it's interesting. And then following that, he was going for UTHC. He knew that race. What did you bring him to do different this year?
So we looked at things long term, and we only discussed things. And I don't want to get this too complicated, and I hope I explain it right. But we looked at things. His long term goal, UTHC, but I had him focus only on QMT and this idea of quote-unquote a negative split. I don't know if the time was actually a negative split, but mentally a negative split. That he's going to run faster, run everyone down in the second half, catch up to everyone, pass. UTHC, I wanted him coming in with a free mind saying, you know what, you proved in QMT, and you proved to yourself, because he's done some other things in training, FKTs and stuff, you can run the second half as well as the first half and maybe faster. You can perform in the end. So instead of entering the race, many of us do. I used to race when I was racing ultras before expeditions. We go in and we think, shit, what am I going to do in the second half, right? Like, can I make it through? If I can get... With Elliot, the mental shift was, at the when you get to, I want you looking forward to the second half, right? Looking forward to it mentally. So although in this race he struggled a bit, and you know, he verbalized to many people, you know, how mentally difficult it was. Truth be told, his mental was super strong. Yeah. So with that aspect in check, and with his body, you know, being able to breathe through things, he was able to perform and come in like what I think he was a couple of minutes off of David's time last year.
It was 3 minutes behind David's time, which is a great performance. And it's interesting what you talk about being mentally strong, because being mentally strong doesn't mean that you have a perfect race where you're at a good place mentally the whole time. But I think he pushed through it. I mean, we talked with Mathieu Blanchard, who was on the course, and in the climb up to Morios, 30th K-ish, he mentioned that Elliott wasn't in the right place mentally. He was really negative, but being strong mentally doesn't mean that this kind of negative thoughts doesn't happen. It means that you shut them down or you go through them. And Elliott mentioned at the finish, I talked with him, I mean, he was in the emotions and all, but he mentioned, usually feeling that bad, I used to stop my race.
Yeah.
And then he continued, and not only did he finish, he fucking win the thing.
Yeah, you win
it's
it.
crazy.
Exactly. And that's the point. I've been on my hands and knees in a desert, in a sandstorm, or I've been sitting on my sled in the Arctic saying, what the frig am I doing? Like, I'm out. I cannot do this, right? Yeah. But then you get up and you continue because it's that little flame that's deep inside you. I said many years ago when I finished running across the Sahara, 90% mental, the other 10% is all in the head. It's 100% a mental game. And yes, we all have different ways of expressing ourselves. Not all of us are going to go out and say, I'm carrying a dozen roses with me. I'm so friggin' happy to be running up Memorial. Other people are going to, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, right? But inside, he's just verbalizing. He's just diffusing gas, right? Inside, he's keeping it together, and he's going after it. And he knows deep down inside. So we all have different ways of expressing ourselves, right? Yeah. Elliott has his own way of expressing himself. He does his thing, you know? And he did his thing.
Exactly, and he's 100% transparent. He's 100% transparent, and I think that's what we like about him, is that when it's going bad, when he's having injuries, he externalizes it. He talks about it, and this is a good thing, because social media, you mentioned it, can add a lot of pressure to many people, but I think to young athletes like Elliott, it brings a lot of pressure to be out there. But Elliott, and we've seen Joanie Desroches, who I just saw her pass, people that are elites of our sport that have discussed about negative things, about injuries, dealing with injuries, and that's a good thing. It's not a good thing to be injured, but it's a good thing about being able to talk about it and not just say, I'm going to post a nice selfie and pretend that everything's going well. No, I'm injured, I'm pissed off, but here's how I feel, and it's okay, and it's normal.
It's totally normal, and I think we all have different ways of expressing ourselves, you know, and some people may express themselves, that energy, that stress, that anxiety, in a way that you're laughing. Yeah. But others may verbalize it in, this is shit. Like, you know, and so everybody's got a different way of expressing themselves. Yeah. You know, Joanie's a perfect example. She hasn't had a perfect year, but she's got the talent to go out and win anything that she enters. Her engine is huge. And it's a matter of just saying, yeah, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to come out, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to train, I'm going to prepare, and I'm going to do the best I can, and things will come back. And she's on the path backwards, right? On the path back, I mean, to where she was. So, you know, everybody's got different ways of dealing and adapting. But I think in our sport, the most important thing is to know that we are in a community. What makes our sport so unique, if you're an NHL hockey player, you're playing, you know, and you get injured and you're off the ice, well, you're out. And you might be over. But in this sport, redemption is king. Yeah. Everybody can redeem themselves at one point or another. And redemption doesn't necessarily mean having to go out and win a race. It means achieving whatever your goal is, you know, finishing. I have a very close friend who was doing the 125. His goal was to go as far as he could, pain-free, and make it through from a prior injury that he had. And you know what? He had to pull the plug yesterday at about 35K. He was on cloud nine in the sense that no pain. Yeah. And he got through to a point that he was happy with, and he pulled it. Everybody has different goals. It's achieving those goals, right? Yeah. Whatever they are. It's always relative. It's a relative thing. Yeah.
Before we dive into your own expedition, because you did some amazing things this summer, there's something, because we talk about Joanie, I just saw her, and I had a discussion with her earlier this week, and I just want to show people who Ray Zahab is, because you're an amazing athlete, you're a speaker, you're an entrepreneur. We listen to you. I know that everybody that listens to the first episode was writing to me, who's this guy? It's amazing how you can, I don't know, inspire people with your experience and the way you explain stuff. But there's a part of you that people might not know, but I suspect that you have 36 hours a day, which all of us mortals have 24 hours. I feel that you do a lot of things, and you're an entrepreneur, you have a foundation, you do expeditions, you're coaching, and there's a lot of people that you are close that you keep on talking. I was talking to Joanie, hey, Ray, I talk to him once a month, and he's so nice. And every time I speak with you on the phone, I feel better after. And Joanie tell me, I do the same. And I feel that there's a lot of people that are not your client as a coach, that are just people surrounding you that you inspire, but you take the time. You're a really, really human person. I just wanted to say to the whole world that listening to Pas sorti du bois, this is who Ray Zahab is, and it's not something that you see in a podcast. We don't hear that. You're not going to mention it because you're super humble, but you take the time with so many people, and people come in, get a coffee, and I'm sure they leave inspired because you have this capacity to just, I don't know, share something. There's a really special bond around you, a special aura around you. So I just wanted to let you know.
Listen, dude, I appreciate that. And we became buddies right away when we started doing this.
We talked. I poked you on Instagram. I said, you want to do an episode? Okay. And then we became friends.
Well, I have to tell you, and you're too kind, but I'll be honest with you. I volunteer my time helping where I can and giving back to my community where I can because truth be told, I'm very fortunate that my profession is exploration, that I've been able to make a living from doing what I love to do. Hey, I'm not a rich man in money, but in experiences, I'm vastly wealthy. And I've been able to, create a foundation, Impossible to Possible, take kids on expeditions. My volunteer life with that is awesome. So I feel karmically like it's a circle. We got to give back where we can. And it's not that that it's an effort for me. I love being around people in our community, and I love sharing knowledge wherever I can and whenever it's appreciated, in whatever capacity. Like, the other day you saw, I sent you this link. I'm working with Apple Watch. I have been for some time. Behind the scenes, it's been killing me. Like, dude, at Christmas time, I can't keep secrets from my wife, my kids, and I'm the worst, so nobody tells me anything, right? So, like, with the Apple Watch, I've been working with them for quite some time, and I haven't been able to say a word about it. But they were very receptive, the team there, to my ideas and things that I wanted to offer. When people are receptive and we're able to share ideas in ultra running and adventure with you, with business and podcasts and everything else, that's exciting for me. And I think that this community, again, the ultra running community, is very collaborative. Yeah. I just saw my friend who had we have to talk to him at some point here. Yanick, come and see us.
Let's bring him in the podcast.
This is Yanick.
There's enough space for two Yanick.
Just talking about 30 some odd K, and he had this.
And
this is a prime example of someone with incredible energy. His goal wasn't to go out and win the UTHC. It was to go as far as he could, pain-free, from something that he worked his ass off for a year to come back from an injury, and he achieved his goal. It's extraordinary, and this is the start now, right?
Merci d'être là, Yanick. On se connaît par les médias sociaux, on s'écrit souvent, puis j'ai vu ta progression suite à cette blessure-là, puis quand on s'est parlé, je pense que tu as eu ton feu vert pour Harricana. C'est complètement fou, tu devais être aux anges. Comment tu te sens là aujourd'hui? Je sais pas comment s'est passée ta course.
Je vais t'expliquer ça rapidement, mais je me sens super bien.
Ah, c'est le fun.
Écoute, j'ai fait 36 kilos, je me suis rendu à la marmotte, j'ai manqué le cut-off par 20 minutes, mais j'ai eu des problèmes de rythme cardiaque au début, puis j'avais pas le running fitness pour l'instant, évidemment. Pas de douleur au genou. J'ai été capable, puis je suis arrivé à la base de Morios, il me restait 15 minutes pour dire j'y vas-tu pas? Je dis let's go, j'y vais. Je pensais à Ray, je dis je vais la pousser, je vais savoir c'est quoi les Morios pour la prochaine fois. Je l'ai fait, j'ai monté, j'ai descendu, je suis arrivé en bas, super heureux. Regarde, je peux pas être mieux. Mon garçon il est encore sur le parcours.
Oui, c'est ça.
Il est 11e à date dans sa catégorie de 20 à 29 ans. Wow. Puis ils viennent de passer à l'épervier. So, on va le cheerer pour eux autres. Puis toute ma gang est là, ma femme, mes 2 autres enfants courent de 28 km ce matin. Perfect.
Une expérience familiale. Là.
Exactement.
Je suis vraiment content pour toi. C'est le fun de te voir. T'es rayonnant. Puis des fois, on entend parler, un DNF, c'est dur à prendre, un abandon. J'ai l'impression que c'est pas un abandon qui s'est passé, c'est une renaissance après une blessure.
Comme j'ai dit à Ray, ça fait 4 DNS que j'ai cette année. Là, c'est comme 36 km de plus qu'un autre DNS. Ouais. Puis pour mon but, c'était qu'on se rende à la ligne de départ. On l'a fait. Puis je l'aurais pas fait sans le support de Ray.
It's amazing. He's amazing. This guy's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about him, like you were talking about him like 5 minutes ago. He shows up, he comes on the podcast. That's what it's all about. We wanted to be in the action. Yeah. Ceux qui le voient pas parce qu'ils le regardent pas en vidéo, Yanick a les jambes très fraîches pour un gars qui revient de 36 km dans les montagnes.
Je vous laisse continuer. Merci beaucoup, ça fait plaisir. On s'en reparle.
See you in a bit, brother. All right, I want to get the download.
Yeah, so as you were talking
there
about,
you
you're involved with so many people
Yeah.
this way. So Yanick seems to be
Oh,
a
he
great
just-
example.
To come back from what he came back from his injuries, and to see him, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
Everybody on this podcast knows what it's like when they can't run. When you have an injury and you can't run, it's what we all do. We all love it. I mean, I do different things. I ski across the Arctic or I run across the desert. But running is it. Running is it. I want to put my shoes on. I want to go running, and that's it. For him now, he can do it. He knows now. He proved to himself in the UTHC, his injury is gone, and he's able to run post-surgery. So
It's freedom. I mean, we love to do races, we love to do big goals, but once you're injured and once you can't run, I mean, events, races doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
You just want to go out and run in the woods, and then the first time you achieve that, it's a liberation, it's freedom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We haven't talked about impossible to possible and with Capic one and everything because you came on the podcast. We had that discussion.
Yes.
So if people are listening and they're not sure, okay, who's Ray Zahab or what's impossible to possible, go on and listen to that first episode. But I want to talk about your expedition because you have crossed many times the Death Valley National Park, but you did something out of this world this summer. Talk about that expedition.
Well, yeah, so I've been north-south. I did the first north-south crossing of Death Valley National Park in 2011, middle of summer. So you know me. Brief synopsis for your listeners. I love being in the deserts around the world in the middle of summer, if possible, and I love being in the Arctic in the middle of winter on expeditions. Desert expeditions, I go with a little bit of support. Arctic expeditions, I go completely self-contained or unsupported. It's the best way to travel in the Arctic. So this trip in Death Valley, I knew it was going to probably be one of the last times I'm in Death Valley. And I decided that what I wanted to do is cross Death Valley at its widest point, west to east. And so I went with my buddy Stefano Gregoretti, who's here in the booth with us from Italy. He's here from Riccione, Italy. And we've done many projects together. We ran 2,000 kilometers across the Namib Desert in summer 2018. We crossed Kamchatka, 20 days unsupported in the middle of winter in 2019, and among other projects. And we set the goal to cross Death Valley virtually more or less nonstop over the course of 48 hours. So we would have to go up over 7,500 feet at 120 degrees Fahrenheit, down below sea level, cross country through the valley, crossing alluvial fans, rocks, blah, 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 bushwhacking, the whole 9 yards, and then climb out the other side 5,000 feet, descend to 3,000. And dude, I've had a lot of bad stuff happen on expeditions and adventures, but this was one of those times where, and people know this, people will be able to relate to this, where you go out for a trail run, and occasionally your feet are heavy when you're on the technical trails. You're like, fuck, I'm tripping over like a pebble. How am I tripping over this pebble? And then other times you go out, and it's the gnarliest terrain you've ever been in your life, and you're acing it, and you're like, okay, I don't know how I just did that. What the hell's going on? It was like that in Death Valley. Like, I could not make a bad navigational decision. We came upon a series of slot canyons, and we were 30 kilometers between resupplies. So we were carrying 5 to 6 liters of hydration with us at a time and drinking another 2 liters at each 30-kilometer resupply. And getting to those resupplies when it's 120 degrees Fahrenheit and you're navigating cross-country and the rocks are all reflecting heat back at your body, you can't make an error. You're faced with 2 or 3 different canyons that you can go down. The bearing is all the same. They're all going in the right direction. Which one do you pick? You stand there and go, oh, they're all going the right way. Let's take this one. And then we go, and it's the right one. And it just got to a point where, when Stefano and I crossed the middle of the valley, coming out of an alluvial fan in the middle of the night, crossing the middle of Death Valley, I said, dude, I don't even need a GPS. I knew where the moon was. I knew where the mountain range was. I knew the general direction where we were going. I said, let's just hit it. 23 kilometers in a straight line across sand dunes and bush in the pitch black based on where the moon was positioned, and we made it there. And I was like, no, man, this doesn't happen all the time. And so instead of it taking that 48-hour time allotment that we gave ourselves, we were done in like 34 and change. We were so stoked about that. And further to that, what we did was the entire time, when you're using electronics, sometimes things don't go well, right? We had devices with us to record humidity, relative humidity, temperature, I think mean temperature, the entire time associated to our GPS track for use in a future youth expedition with Impossible to Possible. It's going to be about desertification and climate change. And I thought, there's no way we were able to collect all the data. Like the devices would have cut out in the heat or something. No, we got the data for the whole way. No gaps in the data. So everything went well. You know, it was crazy.
These kind of expedition, I feel that it's never going perfect, and you feel that this one was almost perfect.
It just went so well that let's put it this way: there is no perfection, but I have no complaints. You know, and I mean, you know, you're dehydrated, you're beat up, you're burned, you're scorched. You know, but we got it done. You know.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that Dead Valley, you have I won't say obsession is negative, but you've been there many times. You've crossed it. Are you the first person to cross it in 3 different directions? Was it
I don't know. That's a good
like
question.
north, south, and
know
east,
this.
west,
Like
and
north, south. So when Will and I did it in 2011, Will Laughlin and I went north, south in 2011. We were like more or less the first to take a succinct line,
Exactly, yeah.
you know, from the complete north to the complete south. But the point was we did it in the middle of summer, so we had to go with support. But many people have gone in winter, which it's very difficult, but you can go unsupported. In winter, you can carry everything because you need less water when it's, you know, 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's, you know, springs that you can filter from. So, you know, but I like being there in the summer. And, you know, any of the deserts that I've crossed in the summer, to the tune now of close to 20,000 kilometers that I've ran, when I wasn't connecting with schools on this one, but I was collecting the data, as I mentioned, because kids aren't in school in July. But when I'm in these deserts, we're usually patched into a school. And if you can get a photo of what that sky looks like, you should see the time lapses. Maybe you've seen them on my social media. The time lapses from this year that will be used for schools and available to schools of what a desert sky looks like in the middle of summer is extraordinary. Everything looks different in the desert in summer, just like it looks different in the Arctic in winter. When you only have 3 or 4 hours of daylight a day, you, as a film person who makes film as well, knows magic hour is a special time. Well, in the Arctic, it's perpetual magic hour in the winter. It's incredible. And so it looks so amazing. So students are immersed in the experience, you know?
Exactly, and there's that part of your journey is that you never seem to do an expedition just for the sake of doing that expedition. There's always this impossible to possible part of it, and explain how it came that I'm going to do expedition, but I'm going to make it beneficial, like people were going to benefit from that.
Well,
young
you know,
youth.
and as you mentioned, like, you know, people can go back in time and find the previous podcasts that you and I did, so I won't re-bore people that have already heard and say this guy talks too much, because I talk a lot. But look, at the bottom line, I do 3 things. I go on expeditions professionally. Exploration, that's my job. Then I have the foundation, Impossible to Possible, where we take kids on expeditions around the world that are learning based. It's totally free. All of us are volunteers in the organization. No one gets paid. And then the third part is Capic One. We're standing here today. We guide people. Stefano and I are guiding a group of people across Baffin Island next week, and we do coffee. Those 3 things are interconnected. But since the beginning, me doing expeditions, since I ran across the Sahara, 7,500 Ks, you know, in 2006 through 2007, that expedition was connected through National Geographic live website, and schools were utilizing that live website during, and it was semi-live, so the technology wasn't as it is today. I saw the power of the film Running the Sahara and the website to schools, and how the power of connecting an adventure to education. I thought, man, there's a good way to talk to students here. We all love adventure. If I come hiking here with my kids in Charlevoix, we learn something about the mountains. You know, on the trail near Morio, the runners could see blueberries. You can grab fresh blueberries from the trail. So right away, you're learning about something, a little bit about mountain agriculture and ecosystem. There's blueberries that grow here. So that's where blueberries come from. So with adventure, we can learn things. And so I decided that every one of my expeditions would be a way as well, purposefully, for schools to connect to me when I'm out there. So like when I crossed the Atacama or the Gobi Desert, I had 20,000 students following from around the world in real time.
That's the best way to learn. I feel that in school youth, there's a lot of young boys and girls that sometimes the theoretical, la théorie is not enough. And once you talk about climate change, once you talk about where blueberry comes from, whatever, seeing it, experiencing it through an expedition like you do, it changes the way you learn about it.
Yes.
And I remember when I was young, when we had documentaries and stuff like that, you remember those things. And I feel that this is what you are offering to these youth. You're doing expedition, you're doing amazing things that not a lot of people can achieve, but there's a why. We talk a lot about why and why we do things and why do we run and why do we do our ultramarathons, I feel that your why is super strong and that has many different facets.
Yes. Well, it's an interesting thing. The older I get, I'm not getting any younger. I'm 53. I feel like I'm in really good shape now. I can perform at this level for a few more years. I'm going to be focusing more on Impossible Possible as I get older. But I got nothing to prove. Honestly, I got to do this because I love it and because I'm passionate about it. It makes me happy. And for me to go on expeditions simply for the narcissistic component of it just doesn't interest me anymore. I just don't give a shit. So I'd rather go out and do these amazing things and experience these amazing things, but also in a way that I feel in my own way. And everybody's got their own reason for doing the things they do, and all of it is equal. But for me, I want to share what it is that I'm learning when I'm out there with the students who are following, but also use my expeditions as an awareness building component for Impossible to Possible, so I can take kids. Like we have Val Gagne working with us today. So Val was one of our youth ambassadors in 2014 when we went to the Atacama Desert and learned about astronomy. Ever since that time, Val is now an adult. We've become really good friends. She guides with our company, Capic One. She volunteers with the coffee.
Yeah, she's in the booth right now serving coffees.
Exactly. So she's super involved, right? And so, this is what life's all about.
Yeah.
I've said this before. I think I said this on the last podcast. If you can get up in the morning and look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm happy today. Like, I'm happy. I'm honestly happy with what I'm doing today. Then you've won the lottery. Yeah. Nothing else really matters, right? So when you find those things in your life, like what I have found with the stuff that I'm doing, and you have happiness with it, then you're comfortable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's something good about that, and it doesn't necessarily mean the performance expectation. Everybody's got their goals. Everybody has their own goals, and they need to go after those things that makes them happy. If you want to ski across the Arctic because you just want to ski across the Arctic, then that's why you do it, right?
Exactly.
We all have the reasons that drive us,
And it's crazy.
They're all good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we're going to move for the camera.
Sorry.
So I see this light in your eye when you talk about the youth and the expedition you do and what it achieved. And it's funny because we got to know each other more as much because we talked since the podcast, and you're really a proud dad. You have two girls? 2 girls. And they are athletes of their own.
Yes.
And it must be amazing as a dad, as a former you're still an athlete, but as someone we're competing like 15, 20 years ago, and you're still an athlete doing totally different stuff now. How is it to see your own children compete?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was concerned. How do I say this the right way? As any parent is with their kids, we live in Chelsea. We live in Chelsea, Quebec, Gatineau Park. You go out the back door of my house, you're on single track trails, and you immediately start climbing. You have to climb for 100 meters before you can get anywhere, right? And so from the time that my girls were babies, we'd have one in the baby carrier. My wife's an ultra runner as well. We have one in the baby carrier, one holding the hand, and we would climb up the rocks. And they would fall and they'd bang their knees and all this stuff. And even sometimes if Kathy wasn't with me and I was on the trails, they'd bang their heads on the rocks. I'd be freaking out like she's going to kill me when she gets home. But anyhow, we go and do these things with our kids and we immerse them in the outdoors. And our feeling as parents was we wanted to give them whatever experiences they wanted in the outdoors, because what the outdoors has given me, us as a family, is so much. As you know, being outside and having the opportunity, accessibility to being outside is a gift. It's something to be taken advantage of. I grew up on a farm and it was amazing, being outside all the time. So I want my kids to have the same thing. Okay, so fast forward. Now they're discovered. They do sprint kayak, sprint canoe in the summer. I have no interest in going in the water in a boat that's so tippy. The boat's a foot wide. This is what they want to do though, right? So they love it. They found their path. They're 14 and 11 now. This is the thing they love to do. So we go to the paddling races. We support them in any way that they want. In the winter, they do biathlon. And they ski Nordic race. They want to race. If you don't want to race, don't race. But we have a rule. When we get in the van, we get in the car, we're going to go to the mountains, we're coming to Charlevoix to go hiking. If we're not having fun, we're not doing it. There's going to be bad days, there's going to be meltdowns, but you guys got to be having fun while you're doing the sports, or there's no point in doing it, right? You've got to, You got to have the growth, and there's going to be a bit of pain, but at the same time, overwhelmingly, the emotion must be a positive one.
Yeah.
And so, to answer your question in the longest way possible, I'm super proud of them, and I love the fact that they want to compete, but it's got to be on their terms. And as long as they want to, and as much as they want to compete and sprint kayak, sprint canoe, I'll be there to support them, 100%.
And I like the fact that fun is the #1 goal, and young people, any people, are good to put pressures on themselves.
Yeah.
And youth, even more. You got to compete, and whatever level you compete, with competition come pressure, but I like the fact that it's all about fun. You can compete, and if you're having fun competing, but a lot of people here this weekend are having a lot of fun competing.
Yes.
But pressure has to be aside, and
Pressure.
it has to be fun. It has to be all about
At the root.
Did you had fun on the trails?
Yeah.
Yes. Mission accomplished.
Exactly.
Whatever you finish first
Totally.
or 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not always going to be fun. Like Elliot climbing Moriel, right? It's not always going to be fun. But in the overwhelming experience, when you look back in 3 days from now, did you have a good time? Yes, I had a good time. So, it's an interesting thing, too, with my daughters. People see on social media, I post photos of my family, videos of my girls running, and I'll get messages. Oh my God, your kids are always out there and they're always having fun. And I'm like, you know what? Social media is so unrealistic, because I got to tell you something. There's an equal number of bad days. When they were young, when they were 10, 11, in that age, like the older one would be 11 and the younger one would be 8. And we'd be up on the trails and there'd be meltdowns. I said, guys, we're not doing this. What do you want to do? If you don't want to be out on the trails, what do you want to do? Daddy, we want to go home. Okay, let's go home. And then we play Barbies for the rest of the afternoon or Legos. I don't care. As long as you guys are digging what you're doing at the time. Then the next time they want to go out. So it's about giving opportunity, ebb and flow. We as adults put expectations on ourselves that every time it's got to be perfect. Not every run's going to be perfect. Not every experience is going to be perfect. But overarching, it's got to be a good thing. Or you should, instead of trail running, maybe we should be doing baseball or something. You know what I mean? Like you gotta love it.
Exactly, and we always have bad days.
Yeah.
It happens, and I don't like it when it happens, but when it happens, and I have a plan. I had to do 1,000 meters of elevation today. I had to do intervals or whatever. If you're having a bad day, you can switch the focus, switch the gear, and I always go for that easy mountain forest run.
Yeah.
It's not the plan. It's not what I was supposed to do today, but it's not a good day. My legs are tired. I'm not gonna have fun trying to do the program I was supposed to do. Let's just throw out the window and have fun in the mountains. And that's for race. That's for running for me. But I mean,
it's also about everything. I agree with you what you're saying, and it's also like the goals that we set for ourselves, right? And the things that we want to do. I've done expeditions like the running the Sahara, or we set the world record going to the South Pole, or unsupported, or crossing the Atacama Desert. These are big, lofty projects that they'll get a lot of attention, let's say media-wise or whatever. But you know what? It's the passion projects. I'm doing a project this winter in the Canadian Arctic, something I've always wanted to do, that my Inuit friends have told me about, that it's just a completely new area that I've never explored, and I'm super stoked. But is it going to mean something to anybody else necessarily? Maybe not so much, but to me it means something. And I think when you derive and find meaning in the projects that you're doing as well, granted, this will be ridiculously difficult, and I'll probably have to be rescued. Who knows, right? But, it's about that, right?
Yeah.
It's all about that,
Can you tell us more about that specific project?
Yeah, well, I will. Because this is the way I get on to that pas sorti de bois a third time is we'll do a whole podcast about it right before I go. But I'm nailing down the route right now, and when I have more information, I'll let you know. But suffice to say, I'm going to be moving fast and light. My sled will be probably between 80 and 100 pounds, and I'm going to try to do 40 to 50 kilometers per day in January in the Canadian Arctic when it's like literally minus 50, minus 60. It's heinous. And I'll let you know a secret. I don't like the cold. I don't like the cold at all. And I've done all these expeditions because I can do it. I can get my head around it because I love the beauty of the Arctic. I love the people in the Arctic. I love the landscape, the geography, those skies that we talked about in the middle of winter. It's all worth it. All the frostbite's worth it, right? But more to come on that. But the point being that this project will not be running 2,000 kilometers in the Namib Desert. It's going to be something that's very personal to me, and I will have to explain to people the geography, right? It's going to take some explanation of where I am and what it is that I'm doing. But it's something that, for me, is very important. Like, people, you know, and Champagne, we were talking to her yesterday, and she's here running the 65K.
Yeah.
She's doing it with her partner, and they're here to have a great time, and that's her goal.
Yeah.
Right? That's what she wanted to do, and she's living that now, you know? And so I think that we find these micro goals, like just having Yanick here a few minutes ago. You could sense the excitement, right?
I mean,
his goal is completely...
He was 6 feet
Yeah.
over the ground.
Yes.
He seemed to be on a cloud.
Yes.
I mean,
It's
his
just-
face, the face of the guy that has been injured for a while, and now he had fun on the trail. It's crazy. I mean,
Yes.
his face was
Right?
worth $1,000.
Totally. And so that defined goal that he had has been met, right? And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be something audacious. It has to be something personal.
Exactly.
You know?
Ray, it's always a pleasure discussing with you. I love the fact that you go in the Arctic when it's the colder. I love the fact that you go in the desert when it's the hotter. You're an intense person. Like everything you do it 110%. And I think we should all be inspired by that and try to be like that. Like once you settle your mind on something, I feel that you do it. And whatever it is, maybe it's crossing a desert, maybe it's running a 5K. Whatever it is, we should do it with the intensity and passion you have. So it's always a great pleasure to discuss with you.
I love that. Thank you so much. And you know, it's been look at the love is huge because I'm so glad we met because of this crazy podcast and the coffee and everything else, and seeing what you're doing with the CCC. I can't tell you how many of us were refreshing the tracker, following you, seeing, you know, how's it going, where's it, and when you came back and just the way you described your experience is very inspiring to everyone. Everybody can inspire someone else. We can, just like we can always learn from others at different points. The minute we think we know it all and we've stopped learning is when life starts to get boring.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And so I entice people to get out there, experience things, learn, listen to the podcast, do different things, live your life like a motocross bike that you've got the throttle pinned and you duct tape it on wide open so you can never put the brake on, you know? That's it. That's how I view things.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks
All right.
a lot, Ray. It was a pleasure again to discuss with you. And with the expedition that you're going, I feel that there will be a part 3. In French, we say jamais 203, so we spoke twice. I'm sure, well, we spoke more than twice,
Yeah.
but we spoke over the phone twice, over the microphone twice. I feel that there will be a part 3, and I just remember that first episode, how people reacted. I was a bit, not worried, but the podcast has been in French for 60 episodes, and the goal is never to switch to a bilingual podcast, except when we speak to Ray Zahab. So, thanks a lot. Merci tout le monde qui nous a écoutés. J'espère que le son était pas super. On était dans le milieu de l'action. On entendait Ludovic Collet qui lançait le l'UTHC 28. C'est le party ici. Il y avait du monde. Il y avait 200 personnes qui sont passées pendant l'entrevue. C'était du gros fun. L'UTHC, c'est magique. C'est ça aussi, l'UTHC. C'est un petit village avec des kiosques. Capé qui est ici. Nac est là. Tout le monde est ici. Puis tout le monde se jase. Tout le monde se rencontre. C'est un grand moment de communauté, l'UTHC. J'ai l'impression que c'est comme à chaque année le début de la deuxième partie de la saison. On dirait qu'il y a le début de la saison, QMT, Harricana, trait de la clinique du coureur. L'été, un petit peu moins d'événements et Harricana relance la saison d'automne. Il y a des belles courses qui s'en viennent, Bromont, Grand-Duc, peu importe. C'est toujours un grand plaisir d'être à Harricana puis de faire un podcast avec Ray Zahab dans un boat à café, de boire beaucoup trop de café. C'est un grand plaisir. À tout le monde, je vous dis à très bientôt pour un prochain épisode de Pas sorti du bois, le podcast 100% trail. That's it.
Awesome, brother. This is great.
Always a
I
pleasure.
love it. We do such good chats, you know? We should do a call with someone. French and English.
Yeah, totally.
We should get some guests on. You ask questions in French, I ask them in English, and then we have like
Yeah, and I know we have
multilingual
great
for-
contacts, so we could.
We should totally do it.
Yeah,
Okay,
of course.
I've got some ideas.
Yeah,